Never mind.
Well,
Nope.
I was muted, but I was not on vacation, but just
Oh, good.
just
I don't
off for
feel
the
quite
weekend
so.
normal. Nah, just a normal weekend.
Okay, good.
I have officially life happens.
You're very efficient.
I've got my life experiences on the tip of my fingers. Always ready, just throw them out there, I gotta.
The tip of your fingers. We do live in a different age, don't we?
All right. Let's see. So I'm interested in trying, so Ashley and I, a couple months ago, we watched an assembly over in the UK. I think it was Manchester. And one of the things they did, it's really simple. They just made sure to say hi to everybody who came in. So I just want to say hi to the folks who have dropped by, which include Adam, hey, and Brian. And is it Allison? Yay, okay, I must have got it right if I got a wave. That is a nice confirmation that I have done it correctly. And Anna is connecting to audio. And I guess we can say hi to Jared if we have to.
And BP?
Yeah, I'm assuming it's Brian.
Oh, that's Brian.
Unless he is in fact an oil conglomerate. We are not sure.
Hello?
Hello, Brian.
Keep doing the wrong thing. Welcome, everyone, but we're not there yet.
Whoa. Uh-oh, Windows wants to update.
That would be inconvenient.
That would be bad. Hey, Trey.
Oh, Mella's coming.
Yay. Hello, Freya. I'll throw out another reminder that we have a participatory part of the assembly called Life Happens, and there's a link in the chat. And if you click on it and you enter things, then one of the atoms, I'll leave it as a surprise which atom will read those.
Anything posted prior to joining isn't visible.
I am not sure. So here it is again.
Thank you.
And then if Pauline and Adam want to, I guess, copy and paste the exact same chat message again, they can.
Just so you know, I don't see how to get it. I'm not. Oh, there it is. Never mind. I'm learning as I'm sitting here.
Hooray.
I haven't had a computer for over 3 years. Aren't y'all impressed?
Hey,
I'm
Joanne.
literally in front of 3 computers right now. I don't understand.
Hmm?
I was saying I'm literally in front of 3 computers right now. I don't understand how that.
My phone was my
That's
computer.
what I was thinking. How can you get by without a computer?
I know, these days you have to have a computer.
My phone was my computer. But this is the first
computer
laptop I've had for years.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Don't let the peer pressure you.
while I sit here with
Coming up in the world.
laptop and the two computers.
Yes, my main
No.
computer.
I only have phone.
So I haven't used this Zoom client and I haven't used this laptop. So who knows what I'm gonna do.
Uh,
Well, don't worry,
well,
we're
you
all
live
on
and
your
you
side.
learn.
Well, I want to make sure I say hi to Mela and Sarah and Diane and Brandon, who is a mystery right now,
Hey, Ross.
and Matthew. There's Brandon.
You're just contemplating in darkness.
Hello. I was
Adam,
getting
doing-
lights because I noticed that my image
And
was.
Adam, other
Oh.
Adam.
Wait, Brandon, so you just had the lights off and that's what it is?
No, I'm not in a good location with lights, so I need to add some.
I just figured something else out. It's so exciting.
Uh-oh.
If you get a flashlight and you can hold it up at the right angle.
Or hold it on your chin and look sinister.
Hold it above your head and look old.
I don't have to do that trick.
Now, I think it was Matthew, and was it Emmeline? Is that right?
Yeah. He's
Boom.
in a second. He's just finishing dinner.
Awesome. Welcome. I chatted with them at Coffee Talk last week. And
Oh,
Anna
that's
looks like
good.
she's making it. Hopefully.
It's funny. I don't know if you can hear from my computer, but there's a church that's like right around the corner from me, and they're having an outdoor celebration service type thing. So it may be kind of loud. They usually have it at around this time, but most of the time it's like on a Friday. So this is different for them, I guess.
We can't hear.
Okay.
I can hear.
Okay.
Joanne, when do you think we take off?
Well, you want to give people another minute or two? That's up to y'all, really.
No, they're late.
Who was that? I can't tell who that. Oh,
That was Adam.
Adam.
They're fashionably late.
You know, I don't believe we've ever put anything in our events saying how long we'll wait for people.
Mm.
Maybe we could do that.
Who are we waiting for?
I don't know.
Oh.
No one in particular.
No one. We could.
We
we
haven't
could
seen them
start.
yet.
Yeah, just all the people struggling with Zoom or internet connections, I guess.
I mean, if they didn't start to connect till 5, it's possible they may be still trying to connect.
Yeah.
But I think this is a good point. We could put in our events.
No.
Well, on meditation, we say we start talking at 7 and then we start meditating at 7:15. So we do set that expectation. But I don't want to make everybody wait here for 10 more minutes. It sounds like a long time.
Maybe we can do 9.
9?
You said 10 was too long.
It's a long time for me. I'm not very patient. You, of course, other Adam, are very patient.
Maybe we can meditate until the next people show up.
But we can, but we're going to meditate again during the assembly. So
You can never meditate too much, though.
I don't think you can. You're right.
Sounds like a challenge.
It's like 3 weeks later, we see true ours.
You'll find me under the Buddha tree.
Okay.
Oh, Ross is gone, so we have to wait for him to get back because I don't know what I'm doing.
What do you mean? We're already here.
I'm here, but I don't know what I'm doing.
And that's all right.
You got this far.
Yeah, we
So
believe
go
in
as we
you.
go.
Just wing it.
That's what I'm gonna do. So
I think Ross would appreciate if we commence without him.
oh, too late.
Oh, you see what he was saying about you, Ross? He wanted to start without you.
Mutiny.
I was gonna say, like, it's very important, I think, to Ross that we be able to fend for ourselves so that he doesn't have to take on so much.
Say, Ross will say, take it, take it.
I am ready whenever you are, Joanne.
Okay, I'm ready. If you're ready.
So you're Delta?
I'm what now?
Oh, don't you remember those old Delta ads? Delta is ready when you are?
Oh, yeah. I used to work for Delta. You think I'd remember?
Whoa.
Yes, we're ready. So I'm so glad that everybody's here. Even the people that are disappearing for a second. And as you can tell, or in our book, the theme for this month is homelessness. And we'll be talking about that later on. We have a great speaker, Mark Madison, and we have some readings and some poetry, some other things. So without much further ado, I'll go to the next slide, which I think is probably, welcome. So, oops, too far, sorry. Maybe.
Naughty projector?
The slide shows out of control.
It is already.
Stay.
Now. Okay, so welcome. We're at Sunday Assembly Atlanta, as we're a secular community without deities, dogma, or doctrine. We don't care if you have 0 gods, 1 God, or many gods. We want to help everyone live better, help often, and wonder more in this one life that we know we have. And we're so glad y'all are here. Y'all glad to be here? So I'll clap for ourselves. Yeah. Go on to the next slide. Some digital guidance since we're meeting virtually during the pandemic, or the damn-demic, as Lisa likes to say. So how do we, like a live event, everyone will be muted except for the speaker, except during question and answers or the icebreakers. We're going to be in some meet out rooms or after the program concludes. The MC, the speaker, I'm Joanne O'Brien. I should have already introduced myself, but I'm Joanne O'Brien. If you didn't know me, I'm not able to help with tech issues. I wouldn't be able to help even if I weren't the MC. So feel free to ask in the chat or ask elsewhere for help. I don't know where elsewhere is. I guess Google's a good place. During conversations, avoid interrupting people, mostly because of the latency. It will sound very funny. We won't be able to get our points across. Okay, participants who violate SAA values will be removed. Now, I'm not sure I could tell you exactly what SAA values are, but I know them when I see them. So y'all, we'll all be on our best behavior. Like the finger, that's the mother finger. Note this assembly is being streamed and recorded, so your faces may show. I should have put some makeup on. I knew it. Okay. Next. There's more than one way to skin a cat. We're going to have a reading with our own Lisa Robinson. I almost called you Robertson. Before we start the reading, I'm going to talk a little bit more about our theme of homelessness, just a little bit about how it's affected my life. The first member of my family that I was aware of that was homeless, and at the time we didn't call it that, was my great uncle Bob. He was a lovely, sweet man, and he struggled with alcoholism. So he would, from time to time, live downtown at what was called the Union Mission now. I think it's just called the Mission, or called the Mission now. He was a very sweet man, and when he wasn't able to hold down a job, he would be either at the Union Mission or at one of his brothers and sisters' house, which included my grandmother He slept on a sofa in the corner of her den, and he would make cigar boxes that he would glue little burnt matchsticks on to make patterns with. I wish I had now. He was a very sweet man. And so that was a long time ago when I had my first experience. Within the last year, an immediate member of my family experienced homelessness. It started with loss of a job, which also meant loss of health care, which included mental health care. And things just kept going downhill from that. Some other health issues came up during the homelessness period. And so actually they were, homeless during a pandemic. And they're not the only ones. There are a lot of them out there right now. And then just as recently as the last couple of months, a young woman who is an acquaintance of mine, not a close friend, but an acquaintance, died while she on the street while she was homeless. So it's a very serious issue. It affects everyone. It affects so many different segments of society, all different parts of the country. Mark is going to give us a lot more information about that. And I'm thinking, I keep reading in the paper with the pandemic and the evictions coming, that it's going to be an even bigger problem sooner. I know Sarah has some current experience with some a person experiencing homelessness. So it's really very common. It's not just the people that we see under the bridges, which was also a sad thing. So with all of that, I'm going to turn this over to Lisa for the reading. And this is a poem, and I believe it's untitled by A.K. Woods. I think Lisa can tell us more about where she found this poem.
Yes, I found it on the website powerpoetry.org, which is a site for people to express themselves and find hope and healing through poetry. This is untitled, but it's by A.K. Woods. First came humiliating loud pink papers that gracefully draped our front apartment door, screaming eviction notice every day after school. Then came doors kicked in, bags in the hand, thievery in mind. The vultures came and picked at our things broken and sprawled across the sidewalk and would just as quickly disappear back into their own apartments. No kindness to the ones who couldn't pay a bill. No kindness to whom the luck had just run out. Neighborly love turned into the Hunger Games, and our cannon had just been shot. Apartments morphed into shelters. Chores for food became a new meaning. My single mother morphed into a superhero. The unlucky ones with signs on the side of the road morphed into friends. 6 years later, I'm writing this from my dorm room, and my mind is permanently set to survival mode, holding on to everything that could be taken away. Finally grown with the door locked. So that was written by A.K. Woods and submitted to the website in 2019. And one thing that I find worrisome is that the home this person has found is in a dorm room. So during the pandemic, I wonder and worry about where they are now.
Thank you, Lisa. Was a lovely poem, and I wonder where A.K. Woods is now. Let's move on to the next. Next is the I'm Doing My Best portion of the assembly. And Adam Hicks has volunteered to share what's going on in his life, or what he's decided to share with us. If y'all know Adam, he's a meditator. He's our virtual documentary night host. And he's also the champion of the trash finding game on our hikes. So Adam, take it away.
Thank you, Joanne. I'm gonna read because I could not ad-lib this very well. So I am doing my best. That is what I am always striving for, but I don't always hit the mark. I've hit a lot of rough patches over the years in striving to do my best, which I later realized was more so trying to be perfect. As a result, I've been committed to a psych ward for suicidal thoughts after failing my college capstone, committed myself twice after committing to too much work or too much at work, and have been in numerous therapies and groups and individually to work through everyday life stresses. At first, it felt shameful to have had to use such resources, but over time, I've realized that the shame was a result of perceiving help as contrary to my goal of perfection. I should be able to do it on my own, is what I always thought. I realized that the people I've met in these environments, both therapists and fellow patients, have helped me gain a much healthier and balanced perspective on life. They've all made mistakes, and they helped me realize I'm not the only one with these feelings, and that I don't have to do it all alone. Instead of aiming for perfection, now I am actually happy doing my best. Although even at this level of understanding, it can still be challenging. I'm vegan, which was another long process of learning to do my best instead of striving for perfection. When I first decided to adopt the lifestyle, I was stuck on perfection. I would beat myself up after eating bean tacos, learning later that the beans were cooked in lard, or Thai curry after I learned that fish sauce is often used, or worst of all, eating tres leches cake, not realizing later what tres leches meant, whichever. I just loved cake. This led me to give up numerous times because I was a failure. Now I understand that it is a process and mistakes will be made. It was easier at first because I chose to go vegan for health reasons. I was between 216 and 270 pounds. I had horrible acne, BO, and like most people had to deal with aches, colds, headaches, etc. All of which went away in 2013 when I fully made the switch. Along with that, I've had many people in my family pass away from complications from diabetes, cancers, and heart disease, all of which I've learned later relate strongly to what I chose to eat or what I choose to eat. I watched the documentary Forks Over Knives, and the combination of my personal health issues and my family health history scared me into giving it a try. It was an emotional roller coaster of progress and mistakes, and the longer I held on to the idea of perfection, the more I focused on and internalized the mistakes. Over time, I was able to find more reasons to stick with it consistently. The health of my family, deforestation, water pollution, loss of biodiversity, but one thing I always avoided was really thinking about the animals. I'd been socialized to see it all as normal. I mean, everyone eats meat. It's just a steak, not a cow. It's pork, not a pig. And when I did start to realize the connection to living beings, I had plenty of beliefs that helped reinforce my decisions to eat them anyway. Chickens and fish are stupid, who cares? And fish don't really feel pain. And none of them really have the range of emotions that I have. And with all of them, they're given a decent life and killed humanely. Even as a vegan, I actively avoided information that countered these views. I only watched the documentaries on the environment and health, ignoring the plight of the animals. The longer I did it though, the harder it was to ignore. It wasn't just my issue with perfection at that point, but the shame from all the lives I had taken personally when we went fishing on weekends, when living in Mississippi, or through my purchases every day in grocery stores or restaurants. What helped me overcome that shame was actually all the animals I've met along the way. I've been volunteering now for years at animal sanctuaries throughout Georgia. As soon as I started volunteering there, the animals were surprisingly welcoming, which surprised me with where they were rescued from. I got to see their varied emotions, especially excitement when they got to be the first to try out their new bedding, their annoyance when I would try to pet them and they didn't want to be bothered, or jealousy when I'd pet one cow, whose name I can't remember, not realizing his brother Cash always had to be first. I learned that the hard way when Cash tried to ram me and his brother when I pet his brother first. I also learned of their compassion and how they look out for each other, how the roosters will not eat until all the hens are fed, or how Sylvia, the matriarch of the herd, will make sure that everyone is safe. She won't even allow any of us in the area if she sees even a slight inkling of a threat. She experienced a lot of trauma herself as a dairy cow. She had been forcibly impregnated over a span of years, each time having her calves stolen and killed so that we could consume her milk, and would have been sent to slaughter herself if she hadn't been rescued. All these animals were rescued from the most horrific and traumatic environments. And even if the environments weren't a factory farm, they were saved from the inevitable outcome before they reached our plate, slaughter. But after all this ill treatment from humans, they eventually learned to open up and trust us again. and from my perspective, forgive. This gave me the freedom to forgive myself and release all the shame from all the animals whose deaths I contributed to. Those mistakes I remember in a healthy way, and it helps me maintain my lifestyle. While I am vegan, there are still many ways in which my actions contribute to harm. But my goal is to learn and do my best to minimize or eliminate it. These experiences in therapy and on the farm helped me understand the difference between my best and perfection. And now I am happily striving to do my best and live fully by my values, while seeing mistakes for what they are. I failed, I'm not a failure. And between those two phrases is a sea of difference. I appreciate you giving me this time to share. Thank you.
I'm muted. I said, thank you so much, Adam. Everybody can clap. That is a lesson. I made a mistake, but I'm not the mistake, you know? Does anybody else have anything to share about that? Thank you so much for that part. Trying to move to the next. Okay, now we're moving on, sadly, to leave Adam, but happy to meet Mark Madison. Mark, I have to minimize this so I can read it. Mark grew up in Vidalia, Georgia, with all those delicious onions, and has lived in Athens for the last 8 years. I bet most of us been to Athens, or we certainly know what about Athens. He's a double dog with a bachelor's in communication and a master's in public administration from the University of Georgia. And he now serves as the director of community impact for United Way of Northeast Georgia, leading their community impact, grant-making process, and internal programs. And Mark was kind enough to volunteer to talk to us about what the United Way, his organization, is doing along with homelessness these days. Thank you, Mark. I'll stop my share, or maybe you can take it away. Can you take it?
Yes, I think I can. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, let's find out. This will stop all this. Yep, it's just making sure. I know that I'm going to stop your screen sharing, and I do know. Hi, y'all. I really appreciate you inviting me, and Joanne specifically for inviting me to join you all. This has already been really cool. Thank you, Adam, for sharing that. That was awesome. So not knowing a ton about y'all's assembly up till she had reached out to me, I can already tell this is a powerful thing for a lot of you. It must be, if that's the kind of thing that you're able to delve into with one another. And I'll start with a caveat, giving myself a bit of a hedging. There are so many people who spend their entire lives devoting themselves to learning about the subject of homelessness, and people learning about it and also working to both prevent and respond to the trouble that is homelessness and the experience that many people have. And so I just want to give that caveat. There is lots more to learn. This is going to be a general overview. I'll try not to talk too long to let there be room for questions, but excited to be with you all tonight. So my name is Mark Madison. I get to be our Director of Community Impact at United Way of Northeast Georgia. And let me also say, if you have questions that you want to just put them in the chat, or I guess ask them later, I think you mentioned there was Q&A later, you can put them in as we go. I've found that in Zoom world, reading the chat while talking is impossible, so I will do it at the end, but you're welcome to throw them in there whenever. So I'm going to get started. I get to work at United Way of Northeast Georgia, which is a huge blessing to me. We are based in Athens, Georgia, but we actually serve a 12-county region. So it is more or less everything from Athens and then west, then until you get to Gwinnett. So we go up to Barrow County, Jackson County, not quite Walton and Newton. They happen to have their own small United Ways, but then we serve south to Greene and Morgan, east over to Madison County and Elbert and Hart. And that's also up north. So I'll show a map later. It's not the biggest deal. You know exactly where our region is. We are a very small team compared to the United Way of Greater Atlanta you might know and love, and hopefully you do. They have a lot of internal programs and quite the sizable crew. We are 4 strong at our organization, and I'd like to say we do a whole lot with that. So we get to do a good bit. And then we have some incredibly helpful interns from the university that especially helped me out in our community impact department. But this is kind of our team, and I'll mosey on through for the sake of time. So what we like to think of ourselves as the three words: we're local, we're trustworthy, and focused. So every United Way is different. And this is an interesting point to give just for context. We all, though it is an international organization, you've likely heard the name United Way or seen Live United somewhere, but you might not know that every individual United Way is locally governed by their own board of directors. We, in fact, have our own 501c3 nonprofit status apart from United Way Worldwide. It's more like a franchise, I guess, to really think about it. And the point of that localization is that we have different needs right here in our region than, say, even Metro Atlanta, say Savannah or Macon or Columbus, who all have their own United Ways working on the particular needs in their area. And I'll talk through a little bit about what those are and then delve into how homelessness is one of the subjects that we deal with. And then trustworthy and focused, like I said before, it's important that we are governed by a local board and that we are trustworthy with the resources we are given. And then we're focused on our three pillars of basic needs, early childhood success, and workforce development. So those are kind of where we camp out and say, these are things we are invested in for our region. This is our focus. And I'll mention what those are in a moment. So some of what we practically do is we run a few programs. One is the 211 helpline that I'll talk about later. It's one of the main tools that we utilize to actually be a partner with many other groups actively on the ground working with individuals experiencing homelessness. It's a helpline. If you ever need help finding food, shelter, clothing, whatever it might be, coronavirus testing or COVID testing, anything of the sort, you could call the number 211 and be connected to a resource. The nonprofit training series that we started in our region so that we could support other nonprofits to build capacity and flesh out their missions. We work with many other nonprofits that aren't even funded agencies, and then also organizations apply for funding through us, and then we are able to funnel some of the resources we have raised through workplace campaigns and other means to make sure that they can meet the mission that they have set out, and also so we can create an incentivized strategic focus for those organizations. So when I talk about that grant making process that I get to oversee, I will briefly just say the fact that these are the two components that make it unique. From maybe a general foundation granting money is our pieces are data led and they're volunteer driven. So we let the data where the need is in our region, in each county that we serve, and each local community shows us this is the need, we're going to go look at it. So it's led us to water, but then the drinking is from our volunteers. They're the ones that we actually have grant review panelists in each of our focus areas, that when someone applies for a grant from us, we have all of our grant review panelists work on selecting who should receive the funds, and those are experts in their field and people particularly educated or experienced or invested in the topic, may it be basic needs, early childhood success, or workforce development. And that leads to how we kind of conduct our our community impact work here, our disbursements of funds and our strategic focuses. Same way we align our strategic focuses. So to show you some of that data, well, first I'll show you our strategic focuses, then I'll go closer into one of them. So for basic needs, we're mainly talking about, because basic needs is the big broad buckets. We had to narrow it down a little bit, but there wasn't a great word for these things: food, shelter, crisis intervention, and disaster response. So these mainly turn into things like working with the food bank, working with our many homeless shelters, working with our domestic violence shelters and things of that nature as well. And also mental illness, mental health crises, and of course, things like the Red Cross fall in this bucket. Early childhood, we're talking about birth to 5, getting that great first start so that kids get to school ready to learn and can take that early learning on to achieve more later. If we can help them bridge that gap, because we know that more than 80% of brain development happens in those first 5 years of life. And we want to make sure that, especially in our community, we have quality prenatal care, we have quality pre-K or daycare facilities available. We have other things like that happening for the kids in our community. And then workforce development, because if we can get folks in the workforce, in education between the ages of 16 to 24, we can hopefully connect them in such a way that's going to move them along. And most of these areas, the two of early childhood success and workforce development, those we really think about, they are prevention. They're also, maybe an even better word is that's for community flourishing. That's really where we want to see things thrive. That basic needs is where we're responding. crisis is still going to hit, even if we do all things right, from early childhood into workforce development. We've still got to come to bat when people have a crisis. And we're going to talk a little more about prevention and crises and prevention and response and the difference as we talk about homelessness. So going fine-tuning down into basic needs and then getting a little closer, one of the main points we look at in our community is housing burden. And you may not know the term housing burden. You may, I'm not sure, lots of folks, it's really kind of hit or miss. But the term is used to indicate that somebody is spending more than 30% of their gross income on their housing. So that's kind of the easy way to think about it. And if you're doing so, you are then in a situation that could be dangerous for you financially. To be paying that much on your housing could mean that another bill popping up would disallow you from affording your housing. It could lead to eviction or some other kind of circumstance. And so we look at that as one of the prevention pieces. How do we help people find better employment and other opportunities so that they don't have this housing burden, because that's going to lead potentially to homelessness or other circumstances. So you'll see that in certain counties, and Clark being Clark being the most obvious, and many of you have probably heard that Athens-Clark experienced this is a significant amount of poverty, that we are at 43% of households in Athens-Clark County are housing burdened. The median household income in Clark County is right around $33,000. And with the changes in housing market, especially individual and multifamily, mostly being made up of students, it's a very unique housing situation we have in our community in particular. But of course, many of us know that the divide between the income gap that we see, many people earning quite a lot, maybe people earning quite a little, can really dramatically change the affordability of certain housing options. So housing burden is just a key indicator that we look at in our basic needs category. And then, excuse me, something that branches off of that is that homelessness doesn't always happen to the person that you think it might. We might be assuming it happens to the person who's maybe just struggling by, they didn't finish high school, and it does disproportionately happen to individuals who didn't finish high school or something like that. But even someone, you might be assuming someone doesn't have a job, but actually 27% of Americans aren't really currently equipped to handle an expense over $400. This was an article written in CNBC not too long ago. And excuse me, it's really impressed upon us both when there was a government shutdown a couple of years ago, and now again with COVID-19 coronavirus, how little there is built up to handle a current crisis or a lack of work for a period of time. And by not having those assets built, there are domino effects. It's not always that someone made one bad decision and this thing happened. It's more something might have happened to someone who was in a precarious situation, not by their own fault, but simply by the cards they were dealt in the place that they are in this moment. So to give you a brief overview, we'll let you see some of these numbers. I'm gonna take a drink and I'll talk about them. So these are some national data points that are interesting. So on any given night, a little more than 500,000 people in America are experiencing homelessness. Over the course of a 5-year period, about between 2 and 3% of individuals will experience homelessness in some capacity. Now, I would say some positive news, really, in a way. Many individuals who do experience homelessness find housing within a few weeks. So a large majority of the people who experience it do find housing again, but the tragedy really befalls the people in highest need, which is not uncommon in many social service endeavors, that we see that 10% of individuals will remain homeless for a year or more. So that's the real challenge. And that's when things, and Joanne shared with me, there are many intersecting factors that your group wanted me to talk about. And I'm not gonna be able to talk about a lot of them, but at least one of them I definitely wanted to cover. And that was mental illness and mental health and the impact of that upon someone experiencing homelessness. And we'll talk about that here in a moment, because those folks that have experienced homelessness for more than a year, if they didn't have a mental illness prior to that, the chances of them having one afterward is very high, and it increases the difficulty of becoming housed again, or attaining housing again. And so some factors that usually lead to homelessness, one that seems obvious to most of us is poverty, being housing burdened, but you don't have to be in poverty to be housing burdened. That's a very important distinction to make, because you could just be in a place where the housing is not affordable. It's very, very possible and not that uncommon. And then, so we see lots of individuals, really the fact is they're just one thing away, one medical bill away, one job day they had to miss work because their child was sick, from not being able to sustain where they're at right now. Disaffiliation is how we describe an individual or an experience where somebody doesn't necessarily have the social network, whether it be family or friends who might have some assets, who might be able to rally around them and help them. And that can lead to this experience. So once you're already in a downward spiral, if you're also pulled away from other individuals, or you don't have that net, you find it very difficult and challenging to not end up unhoused. And this is much more common when we're talking about the differences in kinds of homelessness. So, excuse me, there is the HUD definition, which is literally someone doesn't sleep in a place fit for human habitation. And there's something called McKinney-Vento homelessness, which is what our schools usually count homelessness as, which includes children doubled up with other families, families living in, like multiple families living in a location that's not meant for that many people. So there's lots more of that can occur for someone who does have an affiliation, does have people. And personal vulnerability is really about your circumstance. So that would be something like mental illness. That would be something like being an already disadvantaged population, or someone simply experiencing domestic violence or something like that, fleeing a circumstance that is not positive, or other coexisting conditions. So, excuse me, just keeps coming back. The intersecting factors, I'm calling it a mental illness, is one that leads to a significant amount of greater risk to experience homelessness. And the reason being, an individual who has a mental illness often finds it challenging to sustain employment, can often feel the need to withdraw socially, and can very often have impaired resiliency and resourcefulness, many times even believing that certain things will happen that aren't really going to happen, whether that be paranoia or that be even a kind of optimism that is in a way unhealthy, kind of a different thing like that. And if you've spoken to many individuals who may be panhandling in your community, or waving a flag, however it may be, you might know that you might learn some of these things about them as you speak with them. And this impacts a lot more people than those experiencing a mental illness, but it is disproportionately so with those individuals. And then the reverse, people experiencing homelessness with mental illness. So once you're already have become homeless, if you have a mental illness, they are statistically more often going to experience a longer period of homelessness, less contact with family and friends, and that can be for those same factors, whether it's their choice because they believe different things about their families, whether some might believe, they're out to get me, some of that kind of paranoia, or it could even be that the family has potentially withdrawn for other reasons and circumstances, which is also going back to those vulnerable populations. The family withdrawing is another factor for persons who are of an LGBTQ community can occur as well. And that's really challenging. Homelessness also exacerbates mental illness, as you imagine. The isolation, the same reason why this would happen, isolation is such a huge factor, and the fear, the paranoia of potentially being, you're not in a safe space, and daily having to find another resource, find another way to make it. It's very stressful, and that stress can kind of continually compound on somebody. So that's a lot. That's just a very, very brief overview to not take up too much of your time of kind of the, I guess what we would say, this is the issue. Excuse me. And now we're going to talk a little more about, so then how do we respond? So we see that there are these barriers, these hard things. So what do we do? So there's prevention and there's response, like we talked about before. So prevention looks a lot like what we said earlier about how do we alleviate housing burden? How do we make sure that individuals have the education, both from a very young age and up to an old, in high school and early adulthood, to obtain a job that pays enough to live in the community in which they are. It depends on where you choose to live, but also not everybody has the choice of where to go. That is a privilege that some of us can easily take for granted, the ability to be mobile in that way. Then response initiatives and rapid rehousing and supportive rehousing is kind of a both. This is how a lot of the individuals who experience homelessness for only a week get back in housing. Rapid rehousing looks like someone has lost their housing. We're going to very, very quickly find them housing, support them in paying rent for a brief period of time, and make sure that they are good to go before we kind of take off that help that is the paying of rent. So there's one program in town that has applied for funding through us that has, what they do is actually help someone find a new place to live in the place in which they found employment or that they hope to find employment. And they start off paying full rent for a month. And then after a few months, it goes to half. And after a few months, it goes to less. And then eventually they're on full, they can do their full rent. It helps them build an asset. There are similar programs to help people preventing them from being evicted by showing that they're in imminent danger of becoming homeless. They will help them pay their rent in that moment. A lot of those are about to be called as we see kind of a wave rolling down due to the suspension of evictions for a while. And so that's a big topic right now in a lot of the world that we live in, a lot of folks that we talk to. Housing first. Housing first is probably the most positive and impactful programming for individuals experiencing mental illness. So what this is the assumption that oftentimes it's assumed you need to get all of these things correct, and then we can help you find housing. So you need to go see a case manager and get your everything in order, get good, be medicated in these kind of ways, and start feeling better, and getting those things straight before you can then achieve housing by getting employment. Then it expects you to get all those things on your own. But housing first instead assumes you can't possibly be expected to achieve an exceptional or even positive level of mental health unless you have housing. The stress is too great. And even the ability to hold down a job is remarkably difficult if you don't already have housing. So this is a program where it assumes, okay, we will house you first. And then you will maintain that housing by participating in these case management programs, by being a part of these different things to help you work through whether it's any kind of substance abuse, substance use, or behavioral disorder, or mental illness, or help you find employment for this period of time. And in that period of time, you will be housed. And so that's one of the most powerful ones we've seen, but it is also very costly and in certain circles not as positively received. Coordinated entry is really a system where all sheltering organizations share information about their clients if they're willing to participate, so that they can work together to serve people and prevent folks from just kind of falling in gaps and no one really knowing where they went. And it also helps coordinate across service sectors so that somebody who went to see this organization here knows, okay, you already talked to them. You already talked to, say in town, we have an organization called Live Forward. They particularly help persons with a positive HIV/AIDS diagnosis. That's why they talk to them. And it's like, but they're also not housed. So how do we then just pass them over to this other place and not make them do a full intake and have a big, long conversation and tell their story all over again? Coordinated entry can prevent them from having to spend all that time. And we can just say, here's a bus ticket. You can get there in an hour or less, or even drive them. And then 211 partnership, I'll talk about briefly at the end to not leave you guys hanging on your questions, because here it is. So 211 is a program that we operate out of our organization. And in fact, almost every United Way in the country does. United Way of Greater Atlanta was in fact the very first 211 in the country. So kudos for them. It's a pretty incredible thing. They are one of the stellar programs, and they are the state's call center essentially. So even our calls are answered at the Atlanta call center. We operate the resource database, and I'll explain that in a moment. So again, we serve all of these counties via 211. So these are our 12 right here. If you're just curious, this is more or less the chunk of land a little bit east of Atlanta. Walton Newton would be right around here, and Gwinnett would be in the same area, I think here-ish, or here-ish. So these are the counties that we serve. Anyone in this area, if they were to dial the number 211 on their cell phone or home phone for the people that still have them, it would ring through us. But if you were to call from Fulton or Gwinnett or Forsyth, you would get the Atlanta office, same thing. It rings through to that United Way, and a real person answers the phone. And that's a pretty cool thing. And we also serve 3 more counties when it comes to 211. We actually cover a 15 county region, with including Walton, Newton, and then Stevens County, which borders South Carolina to the north. So how it works is one of our community connection specialists answers the phone, and someone's call, we work through with them, okay, what is your issue? How do we connect you to the resource that can help? So it's stupendous if there is a shelter very nearby where a lot of people are experiencing poverty and could potentially end up in a situation where they are evicted. But if they don't know that, it does them very little good. And even worse, some people can be told, well, there's a shelter here, and they show up and like, oh, sorry, this is a shelter only for blank, blank, blank. Very commonly, a lot of shelters are for women and children, which is stupendous and incredibly important for other dangers that happen, people experiencing homelessness. But also it ends up with it that some men will be unsheltered for longer because they have to go to a few different places to find a location for assistance. So what we want to do is break down as much of those barriers as possible so that we can give them their best first step when they're in need. And that doesn't just go for persons experiencing homelessness. It includes senior services, it includes food, it includes counseling services, and the like. So if you had an issue, know someone with an issue, if you don't know the answer for them, it's very possible 211 does. And we also have our community connection specialists are bilingual in English and Spanish. And then we have a translation partner that we utilize that comes in for a 3-way call for over 100 other languages. So that's a really cool fat piece of what we do as well. You can connect with us by calling, or someone you know could. You can even text us at 898-211. If you were to text us right now at 898-211, you send your zip code and whatever you might need, someone will start texting with you. So we are always going. Texting is always up and going. We are making the shift to where we're not 24/7 for calls because our night and weekend calls are just so small. And more people are using the text line. It's becoming more and more the thing. People don't call so much as they used to, they text now. So we're trying to get with the times as well. And then you can search our database yourself. It is public. Just by going to our website. You can also find it on our main website. We've got buttons all over that send you there if you're a person who might need that. And this was just, if you all wanted the PowerPoint that I had, I could share it with you. And these were just some links to where I got some of the data points if you were curious about them. And I appreciate you guys having me here today. So if you have any other questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them now or just participate some more. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. I know we have questions. I've been seeing them pop up. If everybody can unmute and clap. I know those little hands are up there, but
Bravo, bravo.
Thank you.
thank you so much. Yeah, I know there were a bunch of questions. Can someone who has access to the chat? I really don't.
I'm happy to be that person.
Okay.
So let's see. I'm not going to call you other Adam. I'm going to call you Adam because you deserve top tier status, just like all the Adams. Adam asked about if United Way, or perhaps your specific, are they called branches? I don't know what word to use. Do they have a stance on minimum wage? And so he specifically named Fight for 15 because that, of course, affects the ability to live in affordable housing.
Right. It would depend on the locality. I could say that a lot of United Ways, depending on their local whomever, feel it would be disadvantageous for them to advocate for it really strongly. That's not necessarily here or there about who their donors are and who they're trying to make happy and not. We haven't yet dived into the conversation Fight for 15. It is something that nationally United Way Worldwide has done a little bit of advocacy for, trying to increase minimum wage and work on more policy work as far as the effort from Affordable Care Act and things like that to actually expand and extend that. But a lot of smaller United Ways like ours don't do as much advocacy work just because we don't have the clout or the power to, we can of course organize and do some things. We haven't delved into it ourselves yet. A number do a lot of their work in that same arena with employment services and VITA, which is volunteer income tax assistance. So helping folks make sure they can get their tax refund. Of course, something like increasing the minimum wage would be impactful and change the factors, especially when we talk about housing burden and we talk about employment for a sustainable employment, and not sustainable in the sense of you keeping your job, but sustainable as in it sustains your lifestyle, your life, and not just your lifestyle, but any lifestyle. So it's remarkably important, but we don't yet have an initiative around it for policy at our United Way. But I believe a number do.
I could repeat other people's questions, but like, for example, Marla, if you want to ask your question, you can. If I don't hear from you, I'll ask it. Or actually, no, this was Andy. This is Andy on Marla's computer. Okay, not at all confusing. Andy asked, when you talked about data, he was curious what the primary data sources are that you receive and use.
That's a very good question. So we pull our data from a number of different places. Most of it is from the census. We pull from government, DOE, Department of Education sources. We don't really go for other locations. When we're talking about the information I pulled today for national factors for homelessness, a few different places, homelesshub.org, some links that I put in the other PowerPoint. But when we're talking about the things we use to make decisions, we use census data most of the time. The biggest reason being it is trackable. We do internally collect data. We collect every single caller for 211. We know what they called about and we know some general information about them. We don't keep their names on purpose unless we have to for their own safety. But we otherwise collect that data and we use that to churn back out, okay, what's our community experiencing? It gives us a signpost for where the needs are going. So like in the last few weeks, we saw our calls going back up, which showed that the assistance provided by CARES has started to run out. And so we're starting to see more and more people needing assistance. And we're starting to see more calls about testing because now testing is available. Whereas before, people weren't really calling about testing. They were calling with questions about, I don't know what to do right now at all. That was kind of the March calls. We're all about, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what to do. I've been furloughed and I'm confused. So anyway. We have data from a lot of points, but mostly we use the census.
If you haven't filled out your census form, please do, I guess.
Please do. Very important, remarkably important for all of us, especially this year. It's a hard one.
I was told someone sent you a message privately.
Yes, I just saw that, and I'll answer that now because I don't know if they meant to or not. They asked, because we are all locally specific, the United Ways, I mean, are some not specifically working on homelessness or job readiness? It's more that yes, some don't necessarily identify homelessness as their major issue, but it might be that they are in a non-urban community, not that only urban communities experience homelessness, but it might not be their primary issue that jumps out at them. So say in our community, we call it basic needs, and it encompasses a few different things because housing, yes, housing, but also food insecurity, especially in our rural communities, is a higher priority than homelessness. Homelessness is definitely an issue, but it is a bigger issue in Athens-Clarke County than it is in Greene County. Where in Greene County, there is a literal side of the tracks that is not be able to access food like the other. And there are other factors going on there that are beyond what we can work on, but that's incredibly important. Similarly, others might have a greater amount of need to work with particular populations. Many of the United Ways in Texas work with a lot of undocumented individuals and people who are underdocumented. That can be a lot of the bend of their work and where they need to focus. So it really just depends on the United Way, what their community needs. So it does change, and we also do address those things in a different way. So again, in some communities, they may already have some resources. Some other nonprofits might be addressing certain topics or certain challenges. So in other communities, not United Way provides 211. Someone else they might already be doing it, but their United Way funds that organization or assists them in providing that service because they see it as pivotal. So it might just be that we're there to support and strategize with those players that already exist. But we always focus on the three major focuses of education, financial stability, and a healthy lifestyle. For us, we're still working out how healthy lifestyle fits into where we are. This is actually our first year with our focus areas completely outlined. Whereas prior, this gets a little too deep into the weeds of how United Ways work, but we had funded partners that always got funded every year. Now there's strategic focus, and that's been a multi-year transition for us.
I think Sarah asked a question in the chat. You want to share that one?
Sure, I was just wondering about that you have somebody who's like the person that I'm thinking of is actually living with me now. He does have a full-time job. I'm not sure how much he's making, but they turned his part-time job into full-time, and we had tried various housing options before he moved in here. The last thing we tried, they said he had to have full-time employment. So we've got that solved now, but he doesn't seem to be particularly interested in furthering his education or training. And that worries me because, I don't think he's making more than minimum wage right now. And so say I push him into moving someplace, how do we know that he's going to be able to maintain? Do you have any ideas about how to encourage a person to further their education or training?
I mean, I think that's the big question that a lot of us would really like to answer. I sadly don't have the answer for that. Of course, it's person to person. What I would offer in this moment is to tie it to the result that it would gain. So I was talking to a friend of mine who is one of our grant review panelists for workforce development. He works at a motor. They make motors, ABB, here in Athens. And it's one of the biggest employers in town. And he said, people keep pushing these certain things, but you know what? If you just taught someone to drive a forklift, they could work for me in my factory because every factory needs forklift drivers. Best Buy needs forklift drivers. It's actually and you make more than minimum wage at least. You'll be bumped up a little bit, and then they'll train you to do other things. So it's a very low barrier to entry thing to potentially access, and would be short-term kind of training. But I think that as much as you can lower the bar to entry, as much as you can encourage and tie it to the result, that would be more freedom, more independence, and more potential opportunity, it is going to eventually be a choice to do that thing. And granted, when you make a lot of good choices and it still doesn't go your way, that can be really, really hard. So I totally understand that. But at the same time, that's where resiliency is hard, and also where that support system that you have very kindly become is really helpful.
Those are good suggestions. Thanks.
Yeah.
Joanne, you let me know when, when we feel like we need to move on. I think there's 2 more in the chat.
Yeah, I saw one about our unique challenges in our region and how COVID has affected our work. Maybe there was a different one that you were looking at, but that
was my question. So I was
awesome. I see your
ready
name
to
there.
skip over it.
Yeah, I'll say briefly. Our region is unique in its literal size, its geographic size, and its demographic makeup and population. So we have what is a relatively urban community, and a more so than most of the state, blue community as far as political leanings in Athens, Clarke County, compared to our more rural industrial communities. Also the factor of Athens being a college town compared to our other communities, which are rural folks who have more or less stayed there their whole lives. There are some unique challenges that come there with messaging. And what we're trying to do to assist people and support folks, and particularly when we have a county that experiences a great deal of need, and its neighboring county, particularly Oconee County, having an amount of affluence. We do want to serve both counties, but we can also see where there is need in one and affluence in another. So how do we do both, whereas both feel served and also we're addressing the greatest needs in our community. That's probably one of the biggest tensions of our work. That is maybe unique to our community, but really it's not. Every town has a neighborhood that is very poor, an extra neighborhood that is very affluent. We're all dealing with that same issue everywhere we go. So it feels unique, but I don't know that it is. But that's our 30,000 transient residents in Athens is very interesting in all of our students that come and go for that middle part of the year. But other than that, I would say that it is the workforce development. It is making sure that we have a very low amount of prenatal care in our community. That's part of our early childhood success initiative as well. Very low participation and provision of childcare, birth to 5. And then we're having a lot of students finishing high school, but then not having a next step because they don't have the hard skills or the certificates to get the jobs that are available in our community. And that's where we're trying to get in and make the difference, for sure. I'm just trying to read the chat really quickly to see if there's anything else you all need me to address, but of course, move on as soon as you need to.
It's if I probably am not doing my timekeeper job as well as I should. I was just so fascinated with everything you had to say, and I'm glad everyone got a chance to ask. Does anyone have a final question before we move on?
I want to address one. Actually, I just realized someone asked about funding, and that's always really high on people's minds when they ask it. So I'm hanging like I avoided it or something. Most of our funders are private. We actually receive very, very little government funding. The majority of our funds, and I'm talking like 70 to 80% of our funds, come from workplace campaigns, which means a workplace is signed on and said, hey, we'll run a campaign for United Way. And employees say, okay, I'll donate $1 of every paycheck to United Way of Northeast Georgia to support what they're doing. And that's how we make 80% of what we make in a year. Events are good sometimes. Corporate partnerships, just the corporation actually just giving a sum is kind of lumped into that percentage. And then there are a few grants we receive for programs. So 211 has a local contract with Athens-Clarke County to continue to provide that service in Athens-Clarke County. And then with a regional commissioner in our area. But that makes up for a very small portion of the money we bring in. Most of it is private. So whenever I talk about working with donors, it is working with more the CEOs of businesses. And there are some significant global partnerships that come out of that. I will shout out one briefly is Publix. Publix only exists in the Southeast, but they are the 3rd largest donor to United Way worldwide. So what I mean to say by that is, while I believe Wells Fargo was number 1, and number 2 is escaping me, but Publix is our biggest donor by double the next one, for sure. So it would be Publix, and then the University of Georgia, and then Caterpillar, which they make you probably already know, they build dozers and backhoes and the like. But the point of it being, Publix has astounding employee participation, and they don't make a lot of money, but almost all of them give. And it's a pretty incredible thing to see what happens when a small group of people does something together. And so we don't make a lot of our money off of huge donors. We get it from those people, and they're awesome. And that's who we serve too.
Well, thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate the time. If everybody unmute and clap. I love the claps. Jazz hands.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the information.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
I don't know if I can go back. Do I have the screen?
You will need to regain your screen sharing abilities.
Okay, let's see. How do I do that?
And I'll say while Joanne is doing that, I'll just share that, as thank you for, coming and raising this awareness. We, Sunday Assembly Atlanta donated $200 to your very United Way, because this is needed, important work. That's why we're highlighting it. That's why we're glad that you came to share and talk about it. And we're not paying rent money for physical spaces each month right now, so it's becoming upon us to use that wisely.
Thank you. We appreciate it greatly.
And
That's
back.
awesome.
Oh, here we go. Share screen. Of course, I've lost my thing. Go back here. Present. didn't work. Let's try this.
I believe in you, Joanne.
Think I can do it?
Everybody use your clap reacts to believe in Joanne's ability to do it.
There we go. Bravo. Whoop.
Am I back?
Yep, there you go. Yay.
You're back.
All righty. Let me see. So there we go. All right, let me go back. I think I have advanced the slides beyond where they should have been. Okay. All right, so the next portion, and I'm definitely going to need help with this, is our icebreaker. And we're going to go into breakout rooms. I'm not sure how many people we have, but maybe 2 or 3 people per room. Does that sound right? Or more people? What do you think? What do you think, Ross?
I always like 4. 4 is the magic.
Yeah,
Four.
4.
Okay, 4 people in a room. And this is the icebreaker. We've heard about homelessness. We've heard about some of the causes of homelessness. Take a moment to think back on a time of your life when one or more of those kinds of issues that contribute to homelessness were affecting you. Maybe it was a job loss. Maybe it was a health care issue. Maybe you lost health care and close to bankruptcy. Maybe it was the housing was unaffordable. Mental health issues. It could be domestic violence. For younger people, it could be aging out of the foster care system. It could be if you're kicked out of the house for gender issues or for just being a angsty teenager. It could have been groomed for sex trafficking, those kinds of things. All these things can lead to homelessness. So if there's anything like that, even if you've never experienced homelessness, think of a time in your life when you were experiencing one of those issues that could have tipped you over to homelessness. And now, imagine it's happened. You are about to be homeless. You have 10 minutes to pack a backpack and leave, and you don't know where you're going. What would you pack and why? So that's our icebreaker. And who is putting us in the breakout rooms?
William, as the main host, are you able to help us out here?
Yep.
Because I don't appear to be able to make those. Oh, okay, here we go.
Here we go.
All right. I'm gonna have somebody else join us, you guys. Give me one sec. And you guys can get started if you like. I'm actually managing the chat rooms.
Hey, everybody. We are repopulating.
Yeah. Popping back in.
Joanne has arrived. Joanne has an animal. Things are going well.
It's black. Is it a dog, Joanne? I can't see it.
Darkness.
Here we go. Now let's try to share screen.
But then we're going to see less of the animal. Are you sure?
Share
I see
computer
ears and
sound.
eyes.
Share screen. Is it doing it?
Who
Okay,
has
somebody's not,
animal?
it's not letting me share. Oh, wait, probably because I have to push the button. Here we go. Now, so how was that? What did anybody think about anybody want to bring something to the main group about the icebreaker, about what you would put in your backpack? And interesting.
In my group, a lot of people said they would pack medicine, I guess because they need medicine, and that's probably something homeless people have a hard time acquiring. And of course, usual things were wallet, cell phone, and of course, clothes. And a couple of people said pet, although some shelters may not accept pets. I suppose if worse came to worst for me, I might have to turn over Aida to somebody who could look after her. Because I don't know if she'd do well as a street cat, even if she's spayed.
So anybody else? Yeah. Anybody else have anything just that they want to share?
We had some like good essentials like underwear and what was the other thing? Map, toothbrush, things like that.
Notebook.
Notebook, that's right. So you can keep notes on locations and things. Yeah. A lot of like the necessities like hammock or tent, something along those lines for shelter. Portable shelter.
It would be tough. I just concluded it would be very tough. I really don't know. I know I would survive, but I just don't know how. I've never been in that situation. Well, I guess we'll move on. If I can figure out how. Our next slide, Ross is going to talk to us a little bit about, we'll share our loss of John Lewis with each other.
Hey, y'all. So Friday night, Friday, we lost two immense civil rights icons. But Friday night in particular, we lost our own, at least for a lot of Atlanta, our longtime congressman and, crucially important civil rights leader. And it just felt like impossible to have a gathering of any sort for this city without acknowledging that. So if you don't know, John Lewis was, which is hard to say in the past tense, but was an instrumental figure in the civil rights movement. He was in, lunch counter sit-ins. He was a part of the Freedom Rides. He gave a speech at the March on Washington, and notably, he was assaulted on Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Montgomery. All of this to fight for equal rights, the right for people like him to vote. And these are whenever you think that this is something that's in the past, just remember that this is a man who, was with us before this weekend, who was beaten to a risk of his life for fighting for an equality that I don't believe we can ever really think is rectified and whole. And it just felt all the more important because June was specifically about Black Lives Matter to highlight this figure, show this photo of this quote that I found so evocative of, if not us, then who, if not now, then when? What a call to move, to act, to create good trouble, as he likes to say. And I think good trouble is things like going to protests. I think it's speaking up when you hear some bigotry and you're like, oh, should I just let this slide? I don't know. I think it's to say something. I think it's to get uncomfortable. I think it's to advocate for people who care about this kind of stuff and against people who don't. And I think the last thing I'll say is that this ties into our theme. Homelessness is experienced by people of all walks of life, but both COVID-19, which is not helping, and race are factors that play into who is subjected to it more. And so it's a timely thing to consider race in this problem, because that's what's it's highly relevant to the subject we're talking about today. So that's all I wanted to say, was just to share this. It's something I was thinking about this weekend, and I just wanted to bring it forward. So Joanne, please take it away.
Thank you, Ross. Thank you for letting us all share that with you. It is a tremendous loss, and yet it was also such a gain to have had him for as long as we did. He was my congressman for a while. Okay, we're moving on to our moment of mindfulness. And so we'll take a minute to slow down with this meditation, and it's going to be guided by the poem Wage Peace by Judith Hill, and I've edited it for some brevity. When I think of mindfulness, I think of meditation and mindfulness, and a couple of parts of that is breathing. One good way to meditate, you breathe in, which activates the sympathetic nervous system, which is a little more active with the kind of the fight or flight system. And then you breathe out, which activates the parasympathetic nervous system, and it allows you to, which is the rest and peaceful and calmness that you get from the parasympathetic nervous system. So in meditation, I've been trying to breathe in a little more quickly and breathe out more slowly so that the body can stay in that calmness. The other part of mindfulness is just being in the moment. And so the last part of this poem talks about being in the moment and how when we're mindful, we can choose the part of the moment we're in. We can, an emotion that's can go by, and we can either accept it and stay with it or let it pass if it's not the emotion we want to stay with. So in thinking like that, I'm going to read the poem, and we'll take a deep breath in first. Breath out. Eyes can be open or closed. Wage peace with your breath. Breathe in firemen and rubble. Breathe out whole buildings and red-winged blackbirds. Breathe in rioters and breathe out sleeping children and freshly mown fields. Breathe in confusion and breathe out maple trees. Breathe in the fallen and breathe out lifelong friendships intact. Imagine grief as the outbreath of beauty, or a gesture of fish. Swim for the other side. Wage peace. Never has the world seemed so fresh and precious. Have a cup of tea and rejoice. Act as if the armistice has already arrived. Celebrate today. Breathe in. Breathe out. and we can come back to the assembly. I hope people got a little peace, a little bit of peace in the moment. Let's see if I can figure out next. Oh, next we're going to have Life Happens, and Adam Greenlee is going to help us with that again. Adam, do you have our Life Happens comments?
I do. I am ready to rock and roll. So let's see here. Just going to switch the screen. So for anyone that's new, these are just Life Happens is basically just a segment where everyone can write down anything that's going on in their lives, good, bad, in between, and we just share it. And so we'll do claps for things that are generally good and snaps for things that are generally needing some support, and maybe a lot of times we get mixtures of claps and snaps. So the first one I have is from Jared, and it says that I recently sold my short story, The Librarian of Babel, to Hybrid Fiction magazine. That's awesome. So very cool, Jared. Second one is from Brian. I am looking forward to the day we can meet in person again. It's rough having to eat all of this ice cream myself. So yes, let's clap for the meeting in person someday. Snaps for missing everybody. Yes. All right, I've got one from Paulina here. It's a little weird. I'm reading your words, when you're right here, but hey, I want to do it. So Paulina said, school year is approaching and I am not looking forward to it. Our school district decided on online learning for the first month and they will evaluate after that. It is really stressful to not know what the future holds. I feel bad for our child starting her last elementary school year like this. However, I am grateful for the parents in our community. We are organizing mini study groups and share their responsibilities. We are planning a study group of 3 kids and 3 days of learning together with switching houses during those days. We chose our group carefully since our family is serious about staying safe. If our district decides to reopen, we will switch to homeschooling, which is weird for us because we are very big supporters of public school and would not want this, but it feels like there is no choice. I hope that you guys have options, that your school is doing their best job to keep your family safe, and that you also have a supportive community. Good luck, SAA parents. I think we all need it. So snaps, probably majority snaps on that one. Yeah. All right. Next one's from me. I just said that I am recommitting to watching my diet and losing weight again. I hope to shed this quarantine 15. So I'll take claps for that one. Well, it's a good thing. Yeah. All right. And this is from Ross. Ashley and I visited Cloudland Canyon on Monday and had a great time getting outside safely. Awesome. We're from Chicago. We don't know where Cloudland Canyon is, but that sounds cool.
Up in the sky, obviously.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. You should go.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Trey is up next. He said, I'm lucky to have gotten a nice paying, secure programming job at the start of the pandemic and to have family I can stay with while I save to hopefully buy my first home. Also, I found a way to contribute to the cause via Code for Atlanta. Very cool. Excellent. And I think we've got one more, and it is from Diane. I met Bill from the meditation group at Stone Mountain today, and we went hiking. I haven't been out in nature since BC, before COVID. It was great fun. Awesome. Very good. Thank you, everybody, for all the submissions and everything. It's really great to see what you guys are all up to and how everything's going. So, yep.
Thank you, Adam. You did a great job as always. Okay, next we're going to come up to the collection that we do every month. And Ross and I were talking, and Ross, step in here if you need to. The expenses of doing the virtual assemblies are less than normal, so we were going to focus all of our collection efforts on the United Way, Northeast Georgia this week, the organization that Mark Madison works for. Mark, I believe, has left the meeting, but he provided these two links. One is to the website, and the other is to the donate page within the same website. Two ways to get to the same option. You can give tax deductible donations online at either of those sites for the United Way of Northeast Georgia. Obviously, United Way of Atlanta probably also has a donate page. And anything, you know, I'm still thinking from this assembly, I'm trying to think of how I can impact homelessness directly myself. One way is donate, but I'm trying to think of other ways as well. So anybody that wants to get with me later or message with me that has a good idea of how to do that, I would appreciate. Is there anything you'd like to add, Ross?
No, that sounds great. And I'm gonna share these links in Meetup and Facebook afterwards. And I invite further conversation on this topic about what you are doing, what you broadly, everybody here is interested in doing and taking further action to alleviate this problem in our local community as well.
Thank you. Okay, next we're going to go to the announcements page. And for those of us that have been here for a while, some of these things are very familiar. We're having a virtual mindfulness meditation every Monday. It's a lovely meditation. And then we have a virtual walking mindfulness meditation, and I'm touting that. I host that one. And you don't have to walk. You can still sit if you like. But we also, last week, some of us walked outside and some of us walked in our basements, and moving is good. There's the anti-racism unlearning group. I hope they don't cancel each other out. Mondays at 8:30, and the secular parents community group, parenting during a pandemic. You guys are brave. You are heroes. If I can help, I guess I could read online, or I'm not very good at much online because you're already having to do your virtual learning online. But if they'll listen to me for 15 minutes and it gives you a 15-minute break, I'm available. Just let me know. And the Feminist Book Club, which sounds like a lot of fun. I can't read, but I'm sure it must be a lot of fun. Now, we have a new Help Often meetup, provide the dinner at the Covenant House Shelter. That's on Saturday, July 25th. And there is a meetup event about it. And we have a lot of the items already covered, but we invite anyone to come and help, because there are some items, for instance, vegan beans. We want a dish for vegetarians. No one signed up for that. There's a fruit salad that no one signed up for yet. And somebody doesn't have to take on that whole, because it's for 65, basically. So maybe somebody would like to make vegan beans for 12 or a fruit salad for 10 or something. There's all kinds of ways to accomplish that. So go to the meetup and look at it. We'll also have a little video about Covenant House following this. Virtual documentary night is always fun, right, Adam? Yay! And our next assembly will be virtual, and I think it's going to be about how we're connecting virtually. A virtual assembly about how we're all connecting virtually, right, Ross? I think so.
Yeah, that's kind of the early idea from some of the organizers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't mute before I sneezed. Sorry.
Yes. It's okay.
At least you covered it with your arm.
All right, and as always, we need volunteers to plan the future assemblies. So reach out to Ross. This was not as hard as I thought it was going to be. It was very easy. I got tons of help, and I'll be glad to help anyone that wants to plan a future assembly as well. And thank you for everyone that's supporting all the myriad, everything everybody does to help any of these issues that impact homelessness. I really appreciate that. And like I said, I'm trying, I'm going to try to get more ideas myself. The dinner at the Covenant House is a start. Let's see, next slide. We haven't really, that we know of, or I haven't heard from the people that are actually experiencing homelessness, or some people that have experienced homelessness right now. I'm lucky I never have experienced it. So I'm going to run this slide, and it's self-explanatory. And it's about the Covenant House provided it. This is where we're going to be providing the dinner on July 25th. So Covenant House, if I didn't say, it's a youth shelter for youths experiencing homelessness for all the different terrible reasons they do. So anyone that would like to join us, I'm providing dinner for them Saturday the 25th. I would appreciate it. Thanks. Next, we have the band. So we're going to hear This Must Be the Place, Talking Heads. Do I click on that? Yeah, here we go. So let's get ready to rock out. That's amazing. Everybody, stand up. Everybody in the band, make a bow. We want to see you bow. That was
love that.
incredible. I don't know how y'all do that. As people have said, how do they do band on? I said, I don't know how they do it, but it's incredible. I just love it. Such a good job. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I think that's the end of the assembly. Yeah, thank you everyone for coming and for listening. If we can have some discussions now if we want, I guess, or Ross is saying yes, so yes we can. And we could have breakout rooms, or we could have a general discussion. I'm not sure if anybody what everybody's up for.
Hey, Joanne, I'm wondering about, because like you said, you needed some beans, and I have a cabinet full of beans. And so I'm like wondering about the logistics of that. Like, how would I get that to where it needs to go? What's the plan there?
Well, the logistics are that we're going to deliver the food to them by 5 o'clock, 5:30 on Saturday. So
Does it
I
need to be
have
hot?
on the meetup, people can deliver their food to me at 3, and then I'll take it. I'm going to gather it all together, and Vicki and I are going to take it to Covenant House
Okay.
that afternoon. So that's basically it.
Does it need
So
to be hot?
Well, yeah, it needs to be ready to serve.
Okay.
So if you have a cabinet of dry beans, that'll be one. Not, but if you have beans, are they vegan? Because we need. Well, they actually asked for a vegetarian option, but and I just decided to make it vegan because.
Yeah, I mean, I could cook it without animal stuff. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal.
That would be fabulous. Yeah. You can
Yeah,
go
'cause
on to the meetup and you can message me there. You can.
Okay, I'll do
you
that
have my
then.
phone number, and I'll send you my phone number on the message. Yeah, go on the meetup, the help often, and message me, and I'll send you my phone number. We can get the details. Thank you so much, Diane. Any other items anybody want to talk about or bring up? Anything about homelessness that anybody thought about, or anything else? John Lewis?